Good afternoon, friends. Dear students, we are in Unit 4 now of our paper English Language and Culture. And in this unit, Culture, Language and Writing, we have three parts: difference, not deficits, language learning and errors, and language guide to transfer. These topics are related to learning of second language. As our topic for today, difference, not deficit, it means that the learner of the second language has all the abilities, capabilities to learn that second language. If there is any problem for him in the process of learning, it is because of the difference in his earlier knowledge and the second language. The difference may be that of culture, may be that of the rules of grammar. Obviously, the difference is there. It does not mean that there is deficits. Deficit means lacking. He lacks the ability of learning the second language, does not mean. So everybody has ability to learn second language. The problem in learning the second language is caused by certain factors, because every language is different from any other language. So we will discuss on this topic: difference, not deficit. The modern age of globalization, where the world is changed into a global village. The fast modes of travel and the use of internet have brought together people from different cultures and different languages. It has made us more aware of diversity in languages and cultures. We also experience a spread in the use of English. In the developed countries, especially America and Britain, there is seen ethnic varieties. People from all around the world are found in America and Britain. Among the speakers of English, there are those monolingual English speakers who have little experience with other culture and who speak a local dialect of English. There are those speakers also who are multilingual, coming from different cultural backgrounds from different countries and using English as a second language. Thus, the users of English in their various locations adapt the language for their own purpose. So, people who are migrated to European countries, they bring with them the knowledge of their mother tongue and mother culture, and there they try to adjust themselves in the English atmosphere. The concept of one English or standard English is becoming more fluid. More fluid means now it is not a hard and fast rule that yes, this is the standard form of English. Anything deviating from it is wrong English, is bad grammar. This thing is not so hard and fast nowadays. So it is becoming more fluid. Now it is according to the situation and mode of language. Consequently, one variety of English is not the standard variety in other areas. These varieties claim their own names as Australian, American, Canadian, and even Hinglish. Singlish for Singaporean and Spanglish for Spanish English. The poet Jermina Abad has rightly said, the English language is now ours. We have colonized it. We also constantly switch English as depending on the variety of use. For example, talking to a friend, writing a report, texting, or twittering. But there are certain situations in which the standard form of English is to be used. We should not forget it, that though there is no concept like a good grammar or bad grammar, but still when we are learning the language, our effort should be to learn the standard form. Because if you remember the attributes of standard form, this is the form which is taught to foreign learners. People who learn English as a second language are generally multilingual and multicultural. However, this term is not broad enough because many of such speakers have knowledge of more than one language already. Thus, people having experience of multi-language and multicultural have special advantage. Earlier, they had some inferiority complex about their lack of knowledge of English. Now, linguists have come out with the suggestion that whether one's first language is a variety of English or a totally different language, it is a good idea to see that existing knowledge of language and culture as an advantage rather than a problem. Earlier, there was an inferiority complex in those people who were not able to imitate the standard form of English. But now, after so many researches, the linguists have reached to conclusion. They say that knowledge of other language, knowledge of any other language is an advantage. It is not a disadvantage that it causes difficulty in learning second language, especially English. So they say that existing knowledge of language and culture is an advantage rather than a problem. It is not a deficit. There are possibilities of switching among varied linguistic and rhetorical courses. Such people have more to think about, more to write about, and more comparisons to make too. This knowledge can be utilized in making those people creative. With the knowledge of their first language, they can experiment, they can do more creative work in second language. This type of notion is now among the scholars. These are now these are differences, not deficits. It is good to focus on the advantages of being multilingual rather than on mistakes made in English. However, such a person should do the following to avoid these differences. Now, the differences are there, it is not lacking of the ability of learning English, it is just because of the differences in the mother tongue and the environment of second language. But here are some points. If these points are followed, then the problem will be less. First of all, the learner of the second language try to understand the important features of the native culture which are significantly different from the second culture. First of all, is to realize the differences. Not only the teacher but the learner also. He is to be aware of the cultural differences. How these differences affect your behavior in the new society. These things are to be noted out. That where the difference is clearly seen, where the difference of the cultural background of the knowledge of the mother tongue causes problem in learning the second language. In this regard, what he is to do next is to identify the linguistic features of English which are different from the native or first language. It may be structure, syntax, or the diction. So, the lexical items or the structural items, the learner of the second language, means English, is to identify this difference. Again, next point, identify the pull of your native language. Avoid constructing a hypothesis about English from your knowledge of the native language. English is a different language, and your first language has its own special features, its own formation, its own structure, its own vocabulary. So, do not try to judge English on the basis of knowledge of your own mother tongue. Make comparison between English and your mother tongue to sort out the differences causing the trouble. And when somebody points out an error in your use of language, make a note of it and try to rectify it. These are the points. If these points are followed, then learning second language will not be difficult and the learner will get some confidence also. Here, we have come across a term error. Simply, error and mistake are synonyms. But in linguistics, especially the learning of second language, in this field, there is difference between error and mistake. So in linguists, error is not the same as mistake. What is an error? Error is the lack of proper use of something or not knowing the correct way. You do not know how to use something in a correct way and thus you lack in proper use of that thing. You are not able to use that thing. Here we can say that the knowledge of correct use of English is absent to that learner. That learner does not know the correct rule and thus he is unable to use the language properly. Mistake is a failure in utilizing the already known system. Mistake is when you know the rules of English but by chance or because of some reason you fail in making correct use of those rules. You know the rule but you miss the mark. That is your mistake. Errors are not recognizable by the learner because he does not have any idea about it until they are pointed out or until he learns the correct way. They cannot be self corrected in this sense. So, errors, the learner remains blind to the errors until they are pointed out. But mistakes can be self corrected by the learner because on revision the correct thing will strike in his mind and he will realize his mistake. So, if a beginner, if a person who has just started learning English, if he says, I bought furnitures yesterday, he is using the word furniture in plural. It is his error. When he will come across this practice that furniture is not used in plural form, then he will rectify it. If after learning this English or he has advanced in learning, he has learnt English we can say, and then he makes this mistake, I bought furnitures yesterday, on revising it, on reading it or looking at it for correction, he himself will realize that no, furnitures is wrong, it should be furniture. In this case, it will be his mistake. So that is the difference between error and mistake. In our next class, we will continue this class, difference and deficit. We will try to find out how a person who is learning English as a second language, how he should deal with it. Till now, goodbye and thank you.